Hey everyone, so tail biting, it's certainly a common issue in the industry. I warn you that this is a dense and a little different episode where we'll dig a very interesting topic in a very interesting research paper from these two Italian researchers, and then we're gonna dive deep on the magnitude of each of the different factors. Some of the biggest factors are ammonia level, stocking density, number of pigs per caregiver, type of floor, and timeliness of feed supply. Hello, everyone. Today, we have Dr. Flaviana Gottardo and Dr. Annalisa Scollo from Italy, and we're going to chat about tail biting in finishing pigs and what's causing it. This is a huge topic everywhere, and I know in the US, United States for sure, I'm sure in Italy is probably a topic as well, and other countries as well. So how are you girls doing?
Hi, Martin. Hello. Thank you for your time and your interview. So it is a very important topic, tail biting, because in Italy we are starting to avoid the tail docking. So tail biting is a very huge problem because our pig production is very intensive, and there are several problems linked to this practice.
Flaviana, if you can just tell us, your career so far and how you got involved in pig production.
Thank you, Marcio. I'm really glad to be here and to discuss with you with Annalisa about the topic of tail biting. I'm a full professor at the University of Padova at the vet school. I'm not vet, but my graduation is my master is in animal science. My research and teaching activities is mostly addressed to the topic of animal welfare in farm animal. And my specific interest on the welfare of pigs, on swine industry, is started more than 10 years ago. The idea that we want to develop is to create a research field analysis on pain reduction during routine practice in farm animal. So at the beginning, I did some studies on disbudding and yawning in cattle, and from there I moved my interest towards the tail biting. Mm-hmm. In order to avoid the tail docking practice that is still a practice very common in pig farm.
And how about you, Annalisa?
Yes, I'm a veterinarian and I'm a practitioner, but I work with Flaviana and with the University of Padova since 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. I made both the practitioner and the university life for these years, and I always work on pig welfare. And I work a lot on tail biting, but we studied also pain during pig castration, for example, and all pain related to welfare of pig. Mm-hmm. The topic of the tail biting is very challenging in Italy, and I'm very lucky because I can study the problem by a research point of view and apply it, our results in the field, because I am a practitioner. So it is very important to apply the results on the field.
Very nice. Yeah, when I was working for a genetic company a few years ago, and sometimes we had to deal with tail biting, and we were working with countries, like 25 countries around the globe. And I always use that paper that you guys have because it's one of the few papers that have 20 plus factors, and then you look which ones are more important, because there's so much gas, like people don't really know. People talk about salt, which I think most people believe salt is a factor. Interested in your guys' thoughts, but also very hard to to design an experiment as well. We're going to dive a little deeper. Very nice. Let's get back to you, Flaviana, on academic standpoint. Can you share the studies that you have done, with tail biting, maybe general, but also specifically on that one paper that we want to go a little deeper?
We started our research activity on the topic of tail biting because it was a specific request of the Italian and regional policymakers, because they have to, they need of scientific information on how manage the problem of tail biting. Because from one end, there is the word of the farmer that have to apply to rear the pigs with intact tail, and on the other, and this is for them very difficult to do. And on the other hand, you have to consider the public opinion of the people that require higher standard of the consumer, or the public opinion that require higher standard of welfare. So to combine these two different approach to the problem is quite difficult, and the policymaker needs of scientific evaluation. So we start with the idea to develop the problem, to study the problem of tail biting in heavy pigs, because in Italy we have a specific way to rear the pigs. We prolong the fattening cycle in order to have pigs suitable for the production of the raw ham. So this is a specific type of production. So our first investigation was a conventional experiment in which we tested the rearing system, rearing system, in a male separate sex, male castrated male and female, and with and without enrichment, and with the intact tail, long tail towards docked tail. So this first experience helped us a lot in order to understand the variation in behavior of the animal. And what we understand was that the problem of the heavy pig is not different from the light pig, because mostly the tail biting occurs at the end of the weaning period and the beginning of the fattening. However, despite this, some risk factor can increase, can produce tail biting also later, because in several conditions. What are the factors that can create problem of tail biting later, also in heavy pig, are the availability of space allowance, the space, and so the density of the animal within the pen, and the availability of manipulable and rotable environmental enrichment. So if fattening, the end of the fattening period is correct, with the space allowance and with the enrichment, we don't have a problem of biting. Otherwise, also in this phase, we can have this specific problem. And also another observation was that aggressiveness and tail biting is higher in castrated pigs compared to female. So this specific problem can be enhanced in certain sex of the animal.
Okay, let me just interrupt you there, Flaviana, because it's a great topic, right? It's a topic that helps a lot of people around the globe. So what I'm gonna do here, for those that are listening to us or watching us on YouTube, I'm gonna share the screen here, and the ones that are listening on the podcast, just the audio, we're gonna send that there via email. But I want to share the screen here very quickly, because that chart, that figure you guys have, it's so good. So when you have this chart here, 0 to 100, what does that mean? So I guess another follow-up question is 100, let's say, for classification tree analysis, mixed gender is the highest one. that's 100. And let's see, one that's 50 here, it's farm size. So in this case, is this saying here that mixed gender is twice more important, 2 times more important than the farm size, or not necessarily?
So the meaning is different, as Annalisa told before. The mix, the orange one is explain the weight of this factor in a qualitative way, and the other one in quantitative. So you can better recognize the ammonia with the regression tree importance.
I see.
Please check there is another figure down, this one.
Oh,
so you can understand better the meaning of the analysis.
Very nice.
60 are the number of farms that are involved in the the study.
60 farms.
This is the level of ammonia, and you can find the number of farm that has this specific condition. Just only one farm is the condition with ammonia over 28, and the other one is a 51. And down you have the risk and the standard deviation of the risk.
3%, and then 0.21%. Okay.
So
perfect.
the first factor is ammonia. When you have ammonia, high level of ammonia, another factor go inside the model is the type of floor, full concrete floor towards slatted. Okay, 2 splits, different level, different type of floor. And then you go down in gender, mixed or single, farm size would mean the number, and at the end, pig stockman, the ratio between the number of animals and the person involved in the care of the animal.
Okay, and this number here, the percentage, for example, 0.09%, is that the number of animals with tail biting?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the frequency.
Okay.
Of the lesions.
So for the full concrete floor, the risk, the second, if we go down in the tree, we have gender and then farm size. With the slatted floor, the first important things is density, ammonia, and timeliness in the provision of feed. So the risk factor change according the level of ammonia, then type of floor, and for different type of floor, you have different factors that can affect the risk of tail biting.
Super interesting. Yeah, thanks for explaining that.
So I don't know if I explain well, but it's much easier to understand the type of analysis looking at this figure.
Okay. Yeah, this is great. This is great. I love it. Okay, this figure. And so if I bring down here from influence, so ammonia is the most important here on the orange. Okay. And then just for the folks that are listening, to summarize, right? What's the top 5, right? So ammonia is important.
Ammonia.
Mixed gender.
Yeah.
Amount of pigs per stockman person.
Yes.
And
timeliness in feed supply is
what
very
does that?
important.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that the animal receive feed always at the same time, every day.
Okay, okay. And you're
when they don't have feed available all day, they must receive feed always at the same time.
Okay,
it's very important that they don't have expectation of feed for a long time.
That's great. I mean, and if I translate for the US, where we give full feed or ad libitum, right?
Yeah.
And then, so that means we call out of feed. So you have to have feed. That's the, you know what I mean? Or like you said, if it's manual feeding, we have some farms like that in Brazil, then you have to be at the same time. I see. That's very good.
Yeah. So these results was obtained observing farms that have the meals where they had 3 meals per day. So the timeliness of distribution of the meal is very important. However, this is true also for farms that have ad libitum feed, because very often in the field, in the practice, the trough became empty. For example, because there is a lack of the distribution of several troubles with the feed. So this is an issue both for farms that have meals and ad libitum feed.
Okay.
Yes.
This is
the ad libitum must be ad libitum, always tough with food.
Okay. Just to clarify as well for the audience, the 60 farms, were they all undocked or not? Or they are docked?
They were docked.
Okay. All right. So that's good, because it applies for 99% of the farms around the globe. Okay, that's good.
Tail biting is observed also in farm with docked tail.
Right. And I was going to say,
not on.
Right, exactly. Here in the United States and other places, with a docked and very short.
Yeah.
Very short, and you sometimes you still see, exactly right. Now, one comment I have from my experience with that is, I would have to pull up the number here, but it has to be at a certain size when you dock, and I recommend following the genetic, supply recommendation, but also consistent. When you dock everyone at the same size, we find that is important, because otherwise, if one independent is bigger, then you have more attraction there.
Yeah.
But also, if you cut just only the tip, this is not really advantageous for the animals. It's not very because we observe that if you have the short cut tail, it's okay. You can reduce tail biting. But if you cut just the tip, is not so
helpful.
Doesn't change so much.
That's interesting.
You can maintain the long tail or the short tail.
Right. Not in the middle. Huh?
Not in the middle.
That makes sense. Now, a few highlights here, because it's super cool. I mean, you guys have over 20 factors here, and one that always comes to mind in the discussions, and a lot of people were very convinced on their observations, but it's interesting to see that in this analysis, the genetics didn't play a big role. What do you guys think about that?
This can depend on the number of genetics that we use.
Right.
Because in Italy, we have a restrict possibility of choice due to the specific production system and the PDO requirements.
Yeah.
For me, this is one of the reasons. I don't know if in the practical analysis.
We had the problems that classify the different genetics in farms that had more or less all hybrids was very difficult. So the mother was a line and the father was another line. So all the pigs that we observed were hybrids. So it was very difficult to classify that genetic.
Okay.
So we used classification with groups of genetics inside. So we had the Italian genetics, so we had the Danish genetics, but were class of genetics. So I think that genetics is very important, and in this kind of analysis for tail biting. But in our study, did not emerge this factor due to our difficulties in comparing different genetics.
Okay, yeah, that makes total sense. So if you're from your 60 farms, if you only have a few genetic lines, you don't have the whole breadth, that makes total sense. Thanks for bringing that up, because as people say, that the analysis is we can only conclude within the range of that, of the sample that you have, right? Very good.
This is maybe the limits of a study that is made not in research. This is made on the field, so this is the limit of the study.
You looked at 60 farms, which is also very good research, right? Because you want to, it's very what people call externally valid, so it's real life, and then you are analyzing it here. Okay,
thinking at the future, I remain very interested to repeat this approach with a larger number of farms, and possibly in different conditions, because I think it's a very interesting tools to use for predicting a risk of tail biting.
Yes.
And to use long tail or docked pigs in different farm with different conditions, starting condition. So this study can be considered preliminary, but increasing the number of observation, I think it can be very robust.
Very cool. Well, one thing that I actually came to my mind now is if you guys want to share the survey, the questionnaire, if you will, for your database, we can I can try to help. So we can try to get 20 countries, something like that. That would be fun,
very interesting.
Very nice.
Because maybe we can have more genetics or more,
Yes.
So that would be good. Very nice. Well, a few comments here. Let's see. For so enrichments, this was not as important as the other top 5 that we talked about. That is interesting too, right?
In our experience, enrichment is important. However, in the Italian situation, not all the farms used a broad range of enrichments. So during our survey, we found chains, we found wood, but not straw, for example.
Okay.
Not straw, not straw. So this is why the enrichment is not at the top 5
right. If
of
you
the
had straw,
factors.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We analyze just the enrichment that we found in the farms, and obviously chain and wood are the most frequent enrichments. So this kind of enrichment is not so important in the management of tail biting.
Okay. Yeah, this is very good. Last question I have.
Is a bias of the study, because at the time when we made this kind of research, the farmer used just only this reduced number of enrichment, and few and small as a quality, only chain or other inanimate.
Yes, yeah. I mean, goes back to the range of options you have there for the study, right? But this is still like you said, right? Is the beginning of. So another comment is about diet, right? So we actually have a data set about. I need to pull this up now very quickly here, because this is a study we did with 2,000 pigs, and more focused on energy and fiber. But I'll go all the way to the end here. And you have the energy level in that energy. You see the vices, right? Tail biting and flank.
Okay.
And there's no statistics on this chart specifically, because we could not analyze. We didn't have the data by pen, so you need to take this with a grain of salt, of course. But you can see the numbers here, and again, it's 2,000 animals, all in the same barn, 7 treatments. But look at the amount of vices in red. It doubled. It basically doubled when we went to an energy level that was below a corn soy diet. 2.4 is corn soy, and then you go down, doubled, and then you go to 2.2 or less, which sometimes you see that in Asia and those places. I know Russia and China have seen very low energy level, and that's 3 times more tail biting here. So that was interesting, from that standpoint. But the question back to you guys is diet, right? So energy. There's an interesting data from 1960s on if they are protein deficient, they are more attracted to blood. I've seen that data. People talk about salt. I have not seen data on salt, but salt deficiency or sodium I don't know if you guys are any comments, general comments about diet.
Yeah, if I can speak.
Yeah.
I think that diet is very important, but it is also very difficult to explain, because I think that we have problems both if we have a low energy in the diet, but also if we have a very high level of protein and energy in the diet. So we have a range of balance, and over and under the threshold we have problems of behavior. So in case of lower levels of the threshold in energy, we have animals that have a lack of nutrients and salt. I think that it is very important for this reason. But I should highlight that also diet with very high protein level are very a problem, because there is a surplus of energy and animals are more nervous. So in the first case they have a lack of nutrients, and in the second case they have surplus and they are very nervous.
Okay. And actually, again, back to the data I shared, if I just looked again on the high energy, it went up a little bit too. Again, always careful how we look at that data, but it makes sense. Makes sense. Very interesting. How about you, Flaviana? Any thoughts there?
What I think is that it's easier to monitor the level of protein and the level of energy of the diet and to include them in the model. I have some difficulties with the minerals, because they normally they are had in over the feed, and so sometimes quite difficult to assess the right amount of this mineral. But anyway, protein level and energy source can be very important. In the specific case of pigs, probably also the content of essential amino acids in the diet could be an interesting parameter to include in the evaluation. Because if the total energy and total amount of nitrogen are okay, could be a deficiency in essential amino acids that can modify the behavior of the animal. I think it's something of similar to those happened in laying hens when they have problem with the training and with the use of feather picking. So unbalance in the diet can be caused aggressiveness and interest of the animal, nervous behavior and interest toward aggressive and tail biting behavior.
Very interesting.
So could be included in the model.
Okay. Okay. Very nice. I will. I think we'll start to wrap things up here. So I mean, I know we get excited about it. Some people don't, right? So we're gonna try to keep it concise here. Question is, I think one question I have for you, girls, is anything else before we go to the 3 questions that I ask every guest in the podcast? Anything else on the topic that you want to say?
If I can say, I think yes, we can relate it with the chart that we see before in our study about the number of pigs per stockman. I think that this factor is very important, but is underestimated, because if you have a long tail animal, you have more problems of tail biting when you have undocked animals. And you have to spend more time to watch the animals, to observe the behavior of the animals, to recognize the problem. In the early recognition of the problem, you have to recognize the biter, the animal with lesions, and these require a lot of time. And so this required also a higher number of stockmen unit of animals.
Mm.
And these stockmen should be trained to observe the animals, because they are not prone to observe the behavior. They are prone to observe the sick animal or the animal that don't eat or don't move, but not the behavior that became aggressive. So I think that this is a very important factor.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And just for the audience here, I have the table in front of me. So when the farms went from, say, less than 3,800 pigs per staff member, that was virtually no tail biting. And just to comment on the sample size, there was 10 farms on that category. And then when it was above 3,800 pigs per member, staff member, there was five farms there, just for perspective. And but then the number of tail biting increased from 0.02%, went up to 0.58%, which seems small, but for a farm of 3,800 is 23 pigs. So
yeah,
that's very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, and don't forget that we are talking about docked pigs. But if we switch to undocked pigs, these numbers increase because the risk is very higher in undocked pigs.
Right. Do you guys have a number? How much does it increase? Any idea? From just in general, docked versus undocked?
The problem is that when the outbreak occurs, the frequency of tail lesions increase exponentially. So it is very difficult to state a number or a frequency, but the risk is very higher. I think that 2 or 3 times higher. It's a risk.
Okay. Okay. And you had a good comment, I think, right now, Flaviana, that is my understanding, right? When it happens, when you have tail biting in the farm, in the barn, it's too late.
Is it too late?
You want to fix, you might try to help a little bit and do what you can, but you want to make sure you fix for the next group of pigs.
Yeah.
Is that right?
What I think that we have also to develop, especially for the research activity, to develop automatic system that can early detect the biter pig. Because, of course, we have to improve the quality of the personnel involved in the control of the animal, the staff involved in this activity, but some support can be derived from the automatic system detection of the behavior. That simply can monitor the activity of the group pen, for example, because I think that the group pen where there is the tail biting can be moved more than healthy pigs, for example. So some behavioral parameters measured by automatic system. The other line is to improve the robustness of the model classification regression tree in order to identify the correct strategy for any specific farm. And the other point that I can add to the previous from the previous discussion is to try to understand the correlation between quality of the hair inside the barn and behavior of the animals, because sometimes the extraction of nitrogen from feces can worsen the quality of the hair, and when related also to the temperature inside the room, and these two factors can be definitely very relevant for aggressiveness in the animals. So there are 3 lines of research that we can follow for improving the results and the output of this activity.
Very good. Anything else before we go to the 3 questions? Any final comments there, tail biting?
I think that my take-home message is that to rear undocked pigs is very difficult, but it is not impossible.
To raise them.
Yeah.
Difficult. Yeah. Make sure you have straw, right? We have, I know at least one farm here in the West that has undocked pigs, and they have straw more space per animal and those things, right? Good deal. So the 3 questions that we ask every guest every episode, the first one, and we can start with you, Flaviana. What's your favorite book about pigs?
It's not specific on pigs, but suitable for all farmed animals, is a human-livestock interaction, the stock person and the productivity of intensively farmed animals, from Coleman, and is very important to understand the type of relationship between stock person and animal in order to improve their welfare and productivity. So for me, it's very important. And the first studies on this topic started on pigs, not on cattle. So for this reason, I selected this book.
Okay, very good. How about your book, Annalisa?
My book is The Disease of Swine, so it's the Bible of the pig production.
Yes.
Yes, it's on the top of my books. Yes.
So good. 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
I always joke that you can have a book, but unless you have either experience or you learn from someone else, you don't know which of those pages are the most important, right?
Yeah.
That's where things come into play. Very good. How about Flaviana, on any book in general outside of animal production or resource?
In general, I love the books of 𝗳𝗶𝘃𝗵𝗆. The first is an English writer. The first book that I read about from this author was The House of Sleep. Okay. And I liked the novels of this author because they are uncommonly and very similar to a puzzle. With a very strange story, so I like it.
Very good, very good.
Like this book.
Nice, The House of Sleep. How about you, Annalisa?
I love The Little Prince. It's a book for kids, but it's very nice because it generates thinking. So it's very useful for life to think about life. I love.
I don't think it's the first time I hear that. You know, I need to go back and
really. So
no, I say I've heard other adults saying that it's a good book for adults. Yeah, yeah. I don't even remember if I read it because my memory is not very good. But something
you didn't read it because if you don't remember, you didn't read it.
That's probably right. I need to go. I'll make sure to read it. Okay, and then the last question, Flaviana, what do you think sets apart successful swine professionals from those who are not?
But I think the most important quality of a successful swine professional is someone that is looking at the behavior of the animals. Because starting from the behavior, you can understand, you can get information about mental and physical state of the animal. From that point, you can start to understand the health, growth, performance, welfare of the animal. So the approach of the behavior, the study of behavior, must interest all the actors of the production chain of the pigs, because it is interesting for the stock person that have to control day by day the animals to see the sick animal, but also those that have a behavioral problem. Is important information for the vet, for the nutritionist, because from the behavior and the state of the animal can understand if the nutrition is correct or not. So I think behavior is the topic.
Makes sense.
A way to manage in the modern and successful way a farm, pig farm.
Makes sense. And some people call it just stockmanship, right? Being able to read the animal, right? Understand that. Very good.
But behavior forces you to check the animal continuously and to understand what he is saying with the body to you for about its states in a specific context.
That's funny. I was talking to my wife 1 day or two ago, now that we have the little baby, and we're like, well, you know, when they don't talk, you need to try to understand
Yes,
them, and that's
they don't know.
interesting. Very similar.
So you have to understand what they want to say through their behavior. So it's not just because I work on welfare that I believe this, is because it's a new approach to for a modern management of the farm, to pay more attention to the animal and to the training of the personnel, as Annalisa told before, in order to be sure that the animals are correctly managed.
Mm-hmm. Very good. How about you, Annalisa?
Okay, I think that that successful swine professional should be open-minded and adaptable to different situations, because I think that if the world change, they should be changed with the world, because this is very fundamental for the success.
Very good. What they say is that change is the only thing that doesn't change, right? So always going to be changing. Very good, very good. Well, I really appreciate.
Change is the key of the successful for each sector now, because if you are not available to change, you are not resilient and you cannot adapt to different conditions.
It's so changing so fast, so fast. It'll be interesting to see, even now after the pandemic, a lot of things are going to change, right? Telemedicine and other things. So all these challenges are for the better, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. Well, thanks so much for our time. It's been a joy talking to you both.
You are welcome.
Thank you, Marcio.